And welcome into this edition of Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network. Also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. He is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green. The Gators obliterate Eastern Washington. It is what it is. Sunday afternoon game where Florida got to play a lot of young guys. 52-17. They're now 3-2 on the year, and they get ready for the Missouri Tigers coming up on Saturday. Anthony Richardson started the game with a 75-yard touchdown. He did limp to the sideline, went into the medical tent. We got to see a lot of Jalen Kitna on Saturday as well. Not so much to break down the game, but your thoughts on the way Anthony and Jalen Kitna performed on Saturday, or I guess Sunday.
Yeah, I thought they played fine. I mean, Anthony's one hiccup was the interception after half, but I get that too. You're not staying in the game long. You've been running by the guys all day. Throw it up, let your guy make a play. I know he wishes he had that one back because he would have pretty much had a perfect game without that one.
The throw to Shorter, the 75-yarder, was beautiful. A great throw.
Yeah, beautiful. No, I mean, I think he's found his stride. I think he's found out how much he can do and equally how much he's maybe not responsible for, doesn't have to do or doesn't have to press to do. So I like where Ant's at. And then Jalen, I thought, played great. It's interesting. I've seen Jalen throw a handful of times. And every time I've seen him throw, I'm like, there's something weird about his mechanics or something. But then it didn't show in the game.
Right.
At all. He looked smooth and fluid in the game. And so I think if you're Napier and staff, you got to love that, man. I mean, I know it's Eastern Washington, but it's the kid's first game action that I'm aware of. And he aced it. So, I mean, there's something to that.
Being the son of an NFL quarterback for many, many years and John Kitna, how much does that help Jalen kind of learn the offense, just know the game of football in general because of his father?
Oh, I mean, I think it's invaluable. Especially somebody like John Kitna who played for so long.
Yeah, he played a long time.
And in so many different systems. Like, he knows all the languages. He knows all the, air quote, cheat codes of, hey, look for this, look for this. He's seen everything, right? And so I think, you're a dad, I'm a dad. Like, there's things in your kid's life that you're able, because of what you've experienced, for hopefully them to avoid the mistakes you made.
Right.
In that scenario, that's pretty cool because they've got the same dream, right? And so I think somebody like John Kitna can sit back with his son and go, hey, here's where I screwed this whole thing up. Here's what you need to look out for, right? And so it just kind of helps ease some of that growing pain. But I think it's a huge advantage for somebody like Jalen Kitna.
3-2. Final thought on Eastern Washington. Did they accomplish what they needed to accomplish? It was kind of a get-right game, a feel-good game after the loss to Tennessee. Actually, a very decent crowd. I was surprised at the amount of people that were there for Sunday at high noon against an opponent like that. So good on the Gator fans for showing up. But did that game kind of get Florida right heading into these next two big contests with Missouri and LSU?
I don't know. I don't. That's an interesting question because I don't know what they were supposed to do. So I guess yes, but I don't feel any different now than I did before they played the game. And I'm sure you don't either, right? Did they?
When Eastern Washington allowed 70 to Oregon, you kind of knew what the type of opponent it was.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't feel any differently about the Missouri game based on their performance against Eastern Washington or the LSU game or any game moving forward. To be quite honest, they did what they needed to do because they won big, and that's all you could ask for. But beyond that, I don't know that they got anything constructive out of it except for some young kids getting some time.
And I thought the wide receivers, Shorter made the play, Pearsall on the reverse. If nothing else, maybe a confidence booster for those skill position guys because the wide receivers really played well on Saturday.
They should.
Sunday,
yeah. Everybody knows what you mean. Right. They should. They should. There's a reason they're at Florida and the other kids are at Eastern Washington.
Sure.
And the kids at Eastern Washington are very good players, but the kids at Florida are elite, right? So that's the definition of being a 4-star, 5-star kid. So they should have looked like that. That's why I'm saying I don't know. I mean, I guess from a confidence perspective of you went out and did what you're supposed to do, probably for the first time in the year. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen in Utah, but I think every game after that we could point to areas where they didn't do what we thought they would do, and this is the first game they did that. So I guess that's good.
Weekly reminder, Denny Thompson is the quarterback trainer, I guess. You've been with Anthony Richardson for 5 years plus. You told me about Anthony Richardson before anybody else had ever heard of Anthony Richardson when he was a sophomore at Gainesville Eastside. Translation, I'm sure you've talked to Anthony this week. He did leave the field on Sunday with an injury, came back in the game. As much as you can get into, all good for Missouri? No lingering effects?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm assuming he's playing, but I don't know. I mean, at this point in the season, nobody's 100%.
Right. When you're 5 games in, you've taken the pounding that Richardson has. I mean, that's relative, right? Everybody's banged up to an extent.
Right. And I actually haven't talked to him this week.
Oh.
I've talked to several staff members. We have a whole group thing going on now with Anthony of us all just trying to get him to the same place and him trying to get to the same place. But now that you say that and I think about it, I think we texted Sunday night and I just said all good. And he said, yeah. Like, I think that's literally it. So I don't know. I don't know how he's feeling.
So the last 2 conference games, admittedly, he was terrible against Kentucky. He was dynamic against Tennessee. Take Eastern Washington with a grain of salt. It was what it was. Now you go back in the conference. Missouri, who should have beat Auburn 2 weeks ago, and was beating Georgia with 5 minutes to go. So don't take Missouri for granted. And then, of course, LSU next week. But first things first with Missouri. Your expectations for Anthony. Are we going to see the Tennessee version of Anthony Richardson, or is there a fear we could see the Kentucky version?
I have no fear about him going backwards. He's not gonna have a Tennessee game every game,
right? And he's not gonna need to have a Tennessee game every game.
I don't know.
Well, if he needs to, then the defense has a lot of problems.
It's a different story, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not gonna have a bad game, but I don't have a fear of him going back into that, kind of funk thing that he was in for 2 weeks. I think he's past that. I think he played exceptionally well against Tennessee, except for he missed, about 4 or 5 throws that I know he and I've talked about he'd love to have back. So I think somewhere, if he can hit those throws, but at the same time they don't rely on him to do everything like they did against Tennessee, because I think they still need to run the ball more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's somewhere where he settles for the year. But the biggest thing is I think he knows who he is now. And he understands, okay, this is what my game looks like, and this is what we look like when I'm playing my game. And so I think now when he thinks about Saturdays or he thinks about the game, that's his vision instead of trying to be something he's not.
Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. For the highest quality care, you can rely on Southeast Orthopedic Specialists for any orthopedic injury or concern. You can log on to their website by going to se-ortho.com, and you can listen for Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, the good doctor, Kevin Murphy, on Thursday mornings in the 7 o'clock hour with Jeff and Dan right here on 1010XL for his weekly analysis of injuries in sports. All right. Halfway point for the Gators on Saturday. Right now, 5 down, 7 to go. 3-2. You kind of take a deep breath. You got Missouri and LSU, a bye week, and then the cocktail party. The Missouri game is absolutely vital. And heck, I would even say LSU is very important. You really need to get a couple of wins under your belt for your record, for the perception of the program, just to feel good about yourself heading into the Georgia game.
Yeah, on the way in here today, I was thinking about Josh Heupel. This is his second year, right?
Second year, yep.
I feel like he started last year very similar to what Napier has started, right? Like Florida beat him.
I think Pitt beat him.
Yeah, they had some games where it was kind of like, there's something there, but they're still not the old Tennessee. But then at the end of the year, they finished strong,
right?
And that's carried on to this season to the point to where now they're a top 10 team. I think that's, if you're Napier, that's what you're looking for, right? Is you're looking for consistency. You know what you want this to look like. It's looked like it at times, but then there's other times that it hasn't even resembled what you want it to look like. And so I think the goal is that you look at these next, how many ever games, what do they have, 7?
7 left.
And you try
by the way, it's 6 conference games and Florida State. There are no more cupcakes left.
Right. I think any way necessary, you try to get 5 of them.
Ooh, that'd be a good year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But again, I'm thinking of Heupel. I'm thinking of the way they built momentum going into a season.
Well, and you could probably, look, of the 7 games left, if we exclude the Georgia game, because I think that's going to be very, very hard, is there any of the games left they can't win?
Well, that's the thing, right? I tend to go to the side like fans go to of they lose a couple games, you're like, crap, it's over, right? The last couple years I've realized that's a little bit silly because what you've got ahead of you now is awesome football. Mm-hmm. For every game with the exception of one, you've got a chance in. And even that game right now, Georgia the last couple of weeks have stumbled.
They have.
Right? Now, I'm still not saying Florida's going to win that game, but my point being, if you're a fan and you like watching good football, then every week you have a chance here to go, okay, we could win this or we could lose this. And that's what football is. That's why the NFL is so popular, right, is that parity. So I think it's a great chance, to your point, Hacker, it's a great chance to build momentum heading into recruiting season, heading into next offseason. And I just can't stop thinking about, Tennessee came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Tennessee was left for dead. And then all of a sudden they rallied at the end of the year last year. And now, I would say they're one of the 5 best up-and-coming teams.
Yeah, look, and they got a big one on Saturday. We'll get to Tennessee LSU because I love everything about that game. Missouri, noon kick, ESPNU to odd time, right? There'll be a late arriving crowd. Homecoming. There's a lot going on. It's not even a feeling. You go by his history. Eli Drinkowitz from Missouri usually gets one team a year he's not supposed to get. He almost got Auburn 2 weeks ago, inexcusably missing a 27-yarder, or they go to Jordan-Hare and win that game. Last week, Georgia's losing with 5 minutes to go, still only wins the game 26-22. How careful does Florida need to be here against this Missouri team?
Well, I don't think it's careful. I think you're looking at a competitive game. I don't think it's it wouldn't shock anybody if Missouri won.
I get the sense that you might be a little more objective than most Gator fans. I think most Gator fans believe this is going to be a relatively easy time.
I went back and watched the Auburn Missouri game. Missouri, for 3.5 quarters, dominated that game.
Yeah.
Auburn's not very good. And then the Missouri kicker, like you said, lost it for him.
And the odd thing is, Mevis made 5 field goals last week.
They wouldn't have been in that game against Georgia without him.
Don't have this come down to a kick on Saturday because that Missouri kicker is really good.
The thing about Missouri, and I've only watched one full game, and I watched a little bit of that Georgia game. They're faster than what they've been in the past. They make plays on the edge. I think Missouri's been one of those teams in the past that if you caught the edge, you were going to pick up 15, 20. That's not the case with them right now. They seem to be a little bit quicker. The transfer from Florida is playing really well.
Oh, Tyron Hopper. Yeah.
He's playing really well, and they're letting him do what he does well. So, I think you got to come into this game the same way you came into Tennessee, Kentucky, all those. I think you got to look at it as a huge game and a huge opportunity.
The 5 games in, kind of an assessment of where we are and what has gone down. We talked so much about Anthony. Let's talk about the running game. Let's talk about the skill positions. Was the offensive line, or is the offensive line kind of everything it was built up to be this offseason? Do you like the way they're playing?
I like the way they're playing. My one critique of Napier thus far is I don't like the running back by committee thing. And I think it's affected the offensive line a little bit.
I would go with Montrell Johnson because I think he might be the best one of the 3. And then Trevor Etienne's your kind of lightning guy. It's a thunder and lightning. Nothing against Naquan Wright. He's very good too. But I just like it when Montrell Johnson's got the ball.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer. You could have said any of them, and I've been like, yeah, that's cool. I'm with you. I think that 2 of them are better than the third, right, than the starter. But they're just different running styles. So I think the strength of your team is you have depth at running back, and it should be the threat of your quarterback running, and that offensive line. And I don't feel like either because of scores or whatever that they've really truly leaned on that and said, all right, Johnson, to use your example, we're going to give you the ball 20 times today. Right. And Etienne, you may only get 7 carries unless he's not hot, and then you're going to get it 20 times. Right. Like, I don't like you get this series, you get this series, you get this series at all. And I don't think we can properly evaluate the offensive line's run blocking because they all have different styles.
I mean, what is that a matter of trying to keep everybody happy and honestly thinking that that's the correct way to do it?
I mean, I think the initial thought, and again, I don't know this, but I'm assuming the initial thought is we got 3 really good running backs, and if we do it this way, they're going to be fresh in the third and fourth quarter, and we're just going to wear people down. The problem is you got behind early against Kentucky, and so you kind of had to abandon that.
Yeah.
They did accomplish that against Utah. They were getting chunks in the second half. So I don't know what the thought is there.
You alluded to it earlier. The defense kind of is what it is at this point. They were good against Eastern Washington. With all due respect, that's Eastern Washington. Now Missouri comes in. Missouri's got a wide receiver that I think is like leading the SEC in catches. So they got some playmakers on that Missouri offensive side of the ball. What do you do about the defense right now? Because they can't stop the run. And if Ventrell Miller's not in there, they really can't stop the run. Is it just a matter of try to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound till the end of the year?
Man, that's so frustrating as a coach, too, because your first thought is when they can't stop the run, it's like, okay, let's just play man-free. Let's play one, right? And we'll man up on the outsides. We should have the athletes, but we're going to sell out to stop the run. The problem with that is when you try that,
coverages are blown in the secondary.
So somebody goes in motion, and then somebody has a brain fart, and next thing you know, somebody's 60 yards open.
After Jason Marshall in the secondary, honestly, it's not very good.
Right. So I mean, I don't think I can tell. I know their thought has been, all right, let's keep everything in front of us. We'll give up the yards between the 20s, and then we'll button down. And it worked against Utah. It worked a little bit against Kentucky, really. I mean, if you think back to it. So I would anticipate they go back to that. I would anticipate they go back to, okay, cool. If you get 4 or 5 yards a carry, that's good. We'll apply pressure inside the 20 because we think we can outscore you.
All right, so 3-2, and I want to get to this slate of Saturday games because they're really, really good.
They are.
3-2 in the first 5. You say 5 out of 7. Is that realistic? Is that your expectation for the next 7 games?
My expectation is that they win every game except for Georgia. But hold on, though. Hold on.
Wow.
I'm going to stay consistent on this. None of those teams have any more depth than Florida has.
No.
All of those teams that we talk about outside of Georgia are having the same conversation we're having today, right? None of them are dominant, but they're not going to win every one of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like as a Florida fan and as somebody that looks at this game and goes, yes, Florida has its flaws, but so does Missouri and so does LSU and so does South Carolina and whoever else I'm missing, Vanderbilt, whatever it is. Right? Like I look at that and go, okay, well, let's expose their flaws and not show ours that game, and you end up winning 6 of the 7. I don't think that'll happen.
No.
But if I'm going to wake up 6 Saturdays and go, Florida should win this game.
I don't disagree with that. I think my logic is, all right, beat Missouri, beat South Carolina, beat Vanderbilt. Those are games you should win, in my opinion. You should win. Even though I think Missouri might be tough, you should beat them in Gainesville. So that gets you to 6. Can you split Florida State LSU? I think that's what my hope is. My realistic expectation
I think this is very reasonable.
Is to split Florida State LSU. That gets you to 7. And can you maybe steal one against A&M? I'm looking at that 7-5, 8-4 on the outskirts type range. I don't think A&M's very good, but again, you're going to Kyle Field and College Station. Ask Miami about going out there. Weird things can happen on the road. So that's where I'm at.
I keep forgetting about A&M. Yeah. Every time we talk about the schedule, I just keep forgetting they're on the schedule. I don't even.
Well, the SEC is nice enough to keep sending Florida out there.
I know, right?
Yeah,
I know. I don't know how that game goes. When I was talking about everybody but Georgia, I forgot they were playing them.
But A&M's not very good. They're going to get crushed on Saturday night, I think, against Alabama. They'll have 3 losses on the year.
You just never know with them.
I think Saban's mad. I don't think he's letting on, but I think what Jimbo did this offseason, the fact that A&M beat him last year and rushed the field, I think Alabama might be throwing the ball in the fourth quarter, up 30.
Okay. I mean,
you don't think so?
No, the whole mad thing, like, say, what are you mad about?
Well, I mean, it was the recruiting thing, and Saban started it, but then Jimbo unleashed fire on Nick Saban with that press conference.
And I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he did. Like, I mean, that was out of line for Saban to get in somebody else's pockets, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, if there's anybody in this that should be mad, it's Jimbo. He just can't do nothing about it.
Right.
Right? I mean, he's
you
mad.
Could argue they might be the biggest disappointment in the country, right? A&M?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to really think of a different one. Maybe Miami,
yeah. I mean, A&M is a doinked extra point by Arkansas away from getting ready for their 4th loss before October 12th.
Yeah.
That's kind of where they're at. They're lucky Arkansas missed that kick. They're still looking at 3 losses before mid-October if they lose on Saturday.
I'm just thinking, and I think you're right. I don't think there is a bigger disappointment.
No. I mean, Florida's not a disappointment. They weren't even ranked to start the year. I would put A&M certainly in that conversation. I like the Miami pick as well. Miami doesn't know what they're doing on defense.
I was just trying to think of teams that were like in that top 10 preseason. That's the only reason why I said Miami, but I don't know. I can't remember who else was in that top 10 that's fallen.
Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. Prior to coming in here to do Gator Bytes with you, I dropped my wife and my son off at the airport.
Okay.
They're going to Maine for 10 days to hang out with grandparents. Yeah, they're coming back a week from Sunday. Wow. So that means, Denny Thompson, not 1, but 2 Saturdays I have at my house, just me and the dogs. It's going to be glorious. I'm going to watch 13 hours of college football probably on Saturday. And you look at this SEC slate, and it's nothing short of outstanding. Let's go rapid fire because there's so many games. What do you think about Tennessee and LSU, high noon on ESPN?
This is a huge game for both of them. Huge game for both of them.
Particularly because LSU comes to the Swamp next week.
Yeah, it's big for Brian Kelly. It's bigger for Heupel in Tennessee because they have a chance here to make yet another statement of, you know what, we're here. We're not going anywhere, right? This isn't a Tennessee fluke. This isn't a 6 or 7 game good stretch. They have a chance to beat a very good team on the road. So I think there's a little more pressure on Tennessee. This has the makings of the game of the week.
And Tennessee doesn't go to LSU very often. I think the last time they were there was that play where they had 20 guys on the field at the very end of the game, and they got called for too many
really?
men.
That was the last
I think
time?
that was the last time they were there.
Wow.
Tennessee just doesn't go to LSU very often. Arkansas, Mississippi State.
Kick?
It's noon. Yeah,
it sucks.
It is odd.
That's 11 their time.
Well, CBS chose Georgia Auburn over Tennessee LSU. Arkansas, Mississippi State. The only question I have for you is this: Mississippi State very quietly 4-1. Now they let the LSU game get away from them. They were winning that game until basically the fourth quarter. How good is Mississippi State? They could go to 5-1 if they beat Arkansas at home on Saturday.
They're just really good at what they do. And if you don't have a solid plan to stop them, they're going to win football games. If you match up well, they're going to struggle. We've seen that with Mike Leach in the past. Mike Leach his team can put up 500 yards, and the next week, they match up. Somebody matches up well against them.
Yeah,
and they really, really struggle. And I think that's the reality of what Mississippi State is going to be under Mike Leach. Which there's nothing wrong with that. Mike Leach is going to win you 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 games a year. At Mississippi State, but I don't think I would never gamble on Mississippi State because I don't know that you know what you're going to get.
I had Barrett Sallee of CBS Sports on Hacker After Dark earlier this week, and we're in the midst of a conversation. I was actually talking to him about Georgia and Georgia's struggles the last 2 games, and we talked about the coaches that have been fired with Scott Frost and Paul Chryst in the Big Ten. So I just asked him about Brian Harsin. And out of the blue, just so, like, matter of fact, he's like, yeah, I think he might get fired Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
You're connected a little bit in the coaching circles, certainly. Is that the rumor? If Georgia takes them behind the woodshed, could Harsin be out as early as Saturday night?
I hope not. But we're talking about Auburn.
Yeah.
We don't ever know what Auburn's going to do. We have a quarterback at Auburn, Holden Geriner, who's the backup. Really talented kid, and I love the way Harsin has worked with Holden, because the gut reaction would be, let's put him out there because they've been searching for answers. But he's gone on record talking about Holden is one of the best throwers I've ever seen, and he's doing a great job of making sure that Holden is ready before he throws him into action. So I respect that side of Brian Harsin. Outside of that, I don't know him. But, I've had enough guys at Auburn and followed them enough to know that group of donors, they don't mess around.
Right.
And
a lot of them didn't want him in the first place.
Right. And they damn near fired him in February.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. It wouldn't shock me.
And all the talk is, people talk about Dion, Urban Meyer, Dave Aranda. Based on guys I've talked to this week, they're going to make a beeline for Lane Kiffin to Auburn if they do end up firing Harsin. Lane Kiffin's got Ole Miss undefeated. They go to Vandy. They should win that game.
No way I'd take that job if I'm Lane Kiffin.
You don't leave Ole Miss for Auburn? Really? No. Why?
Because of what I just said.
But okay, well, yes, that's true. But, you talk about the tier of jobs, right? Auburn is a better job than Ole Miss, is it not?
I don't know that it is. Because of that donor group. They've got so much control over what happens there.
With your Lane and your Lane's reps, don't you address that in the negotiation process?
They can tell you whatever they want to tell you, but history suggests they know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who the AD is. It doesn't matter who the president is. None of that matters. What's going to happen at Auburn is what that group says to happen. And that doesn't happen at Ole Miss. So at some point, the money's so big now that quality of life is a much bigger deal than just having a name attached to it now, because Lane's probably making 5 or 6 or 7 at Ole Miss.
If Auburn throws a big offer out there and Ole Miss matches it, if the money is the same, you're saying you would stay at Ole Miss?
If the money is even close to the same. If it is 20%. If Auburn offers you 9 and Ole Miss counters with 7.5, I'm saying at Ole Miss.
Well, and the reason people are connecting the dots, obviously, Lane Kiffin in the Sugar Bowl last year, he's got Ole Miss at 5-0 again this year, but he was pretty vocal in the last couple of weeks about the lack of fan support in Oxford.
Oh, I get it. No, and I'm not saying Ole Miss is the end-all, be-all for Lane. This is more me saying as a coach, I don't know that anything Auburn tells you that you can look at and go, yeah, I trust that.
So Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, really quick, because we got to get to Florida, Missouri. Really quick on Georgia. We thought they were the 33rd NFL team 2.5 weeks ago. They've stumbled around and survived the last 2 games against 2 clearly inferior opponents. Are people just catching on to what they were doing? Is the newness of that roster catching up with them? Why have they, for their standards, struggled here recently?
I don't know the answer to that, Hack. Stetson hasn't played well. His stats won't say that, but I've watched the games. They're still utilizing their tight ends. They're still running the same sets. And I don't know. I'm going to believe that what we saw out of Georgia the first 3 weeks is the real Georgia, and that they've just kind of gotten bored in the middle of the season a little bit. But I still think they're the best team in the country.
South Carolina plays Kentucky. We'll see if Kentucky can respond after their first loss last week. So do you think A&M keeps it close against Alabama Saturday night?
It's at Alabama.
It's in Tuscaloosa. And we don't know about Bryce Young. At the time we're recording this, Bryce Young's uncertainty for that game.
They didn't skip a beat with the other kid.
No, the other kid, I don't know if you know him or not.
Yeah. No, he's
guy's
legit.
A thoroughbred.
No, he's legit.
Watching that kid run, I was like, holy moly.
He's legit, and they've done a really good job at developing him. Really good job at developing him. No, he's a really good player. Yeah, I'm going to go with you on this. I think Alabama crushes them. Just because it is in Tuscaloosa. What is that, 7:30?
8 o'clock, CBS. This is the doubleheader. Yeah, and again, CBS chose Auburn, Georgia over Tennessee, LSU, which I find to be kind of weird, but it is what it is.
That's the old rivalry, so.
But it doesn't get a whole lot bigger than noon on ESPNU. I mean, that's what it's all about from Missouri and Florida. Of course, you'll hear the game right here on 1010XL in Jacksonville as well.
Can I ask a quick question? Do y'all care? Do y'all care the time and the channel that the Florida game's on?
No, I care from this aspect. I don't like it that it's on opposite Tennessee LSU because I'd rather watch Tennessee LSU. You know what I mean?
But I mean, like, even if it's at 3:30, it'd be opposite of Auburn, Georgia. Like,
you're talking about any given weekend?
Yeah. Do you care?
If I'm going to the game, yes. Which I'm going to this game.
Why would you care what it's on if you're going?
Right. Yeah, we're talking about
the channel.
network.
I thought you were just talking about the time.
No. The time I get if you're going. But if, like, you're at home watching, does it matter if it's on CBS or...
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, especially back when Vern Lundquist was on the call. I mean, it just adds ambiance to it.
The CBS theme song.
Right.
And all that.
I like night games. I prefer night games just personally from the time, but I never really even noticed. I just say it into the remote.
Well, also,
Florida.
the fact that CBS 3:30 has been like the game every week, like my entire life at least, associates it with like, okay, this game's dope if it's CBS.
Right, well, that's kind of the point. Yeah. Dope, is that what you said? Dope?
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure if our audience is ready for that.
Denny likes the word dope.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm the oldest 38-year-old on the planet. Does dope mean like good?
You're 38
cool?
now?
38, yeah. Isn't that unbelievable? I know. I'm going to be 39 at the end of this month.
It is unbelievable.
Grew up on the radio, man. Been doing it since I was 18. The noon ESPNU means that it's the fifth best game in the conference.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, like, when I watch a game, if you didn't tell me every week, I would have no idea.
Yeah, I'm weird.
You're saying like in the second quarter with 5 minutes to go, you're not like, damn, I wish this was CBS.
Right.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. So as far as the game goes, we got to go quick here. What do you think? I mean, is this a game in the fourth quarter? Missouri should have beat Auburn and was beating Georgia with 5 minutes to go.
No, this is a game in the fourth quarter. There's no doubt. I have no idea. I mean, I wouldn't bet on this. I don't even know what the line is.
I'm telling you, though, and I think a lot of the line is Florida. What do you think Florida's favored by? Just take a guess.
3.5.
11.
There's no way.
Florida's an 11-point favorite.
There's no way. No way I'm taking that.
I'm not touching that with a 20-foot pole.
No.
So, but I do think...
I think Florida wins, but I think there's some homer in me on that because I don't know that they're that much better than Missouri.
I think Florida wins the game. Again, I would caution people, though, because I've had a lot of my buddies tell me, it'll be good to get a win going into LSU. Yeah, if they win, right? Missouri is probably better than some Gator fans realize. They beat you last year, and Drinkowitz gets one that he's not supposed to get pretty much every year. There at Missouri, you just hope it's not Saturday in Gainesville.
I think it's the perfect game for Florida right now where they're at. It's a good opponent that you're going to have to be up for. You're going to have to execute, but you certainly can beat.
He is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. That's Graham Marsh. This is Gator Bytes. 1010XL.com and the Florida Gator 1010XL Podcast Network on Facebook. We'll be back next week to review Missouri and look ahead to LSU, one of the biggest games of the year. That'll be a lot of fun. Gator Bytes, 1010XL and 1010XL.com.